Welcome to 032 Conversations, the podcast where we talk to creatives, see how they live, and how they do their work. I'm your host, Carlo Villarica. Hello. How is your day so far? I know last week I talked a little bit about cycling, and honestly, I'm trying to do my best not to really talk about it all the time because, I don't know, it's something that I'm excited about, so it kind of just comes out. But bear with me. I just wanted to share this. Friends of mine told me that in SRP by Lantau or by Il Corso, that there's that road there, there's a stretch there in SRP or near Il Corso that's by the water. So there's a lot of joggers and there's cyclists. They bike around that whole stretch. I think it's about 2.5 to 3 kilometers, I believe, per round or per or the whole. I'm not sure, but it basically that stretch. And apparently they have crits, or basically the races, every Saturday. A lot of the content that I watch online has lately been vlogs, and then like cycling vlogs, and a lot of these vlogs have to do with like races or criteriums or crits. And I've always wanted to join one. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to do it just for fun, just see how it goes. So I joined my first bike race, like a criterium. So I believe you start where Lantau is, and then you just go down the stretch. There's a hairpin curve, and then you just go down the other stretch, another hairpin curve, and then you just go back and forth. It's basically a straight line. And it was fun. I literally did not know anybody there. I knew no one. So when I got there, I was literally, on my way there, I met the cyclist. His name was Ricky. We were still like on the way to SRP. And then he asked me if I was going to race. I said, yeah, I just want to try it out. Lingaw lang ba? And then, so he's like, oh, sure, kuyugan ka. So he just went with me. And he turned out to be like one of these old professional cyclists in Cebu. Like, back in the day, there used to be all sorts of like tours around the Philippines. I think they called it the Marlboro Tour or something. And he's really cool, really nice guy. And then, he helped me out. So he showed me where the registration booth was, helped me with the registration, and he told me to sign up for category C. And he asked me if I've raced before, and I said, no, this is my first time. He could probably see that it was my first time. I wasn't even wearing the right shoes. I barely had the right bike. Like, my bike is not really meant for racing. And then so he signed me up for category C, which turned out to be the 45 and older category. And I'm not 45 years old. But anyway, so we signed up for that. It was cool because like in the race, it turns out that a lot of them were like ex-professional cyclists. And then in the end, it's probably where I belong, because if I joined the younger group, well, let me spoil it for you. So first, we started the race. First realization when we started the race was, okay, I've never done this before. I'm not really sure what to do. So I just tried to stay with the pack. And then apparently it's a running start. So a running start, I think, means the bikes just keep going at a really slow pace. And then at some point, when you cross the starting line, you just speed up. And I was not ready for it. All I've been doing was watching videos prior to the competition. And then I realized that the key to the crits is just staying with the pack. Like, if you're not going to lead, try to stay with the pack. And after the second turn pin, I couldn't for the life of me get back to the pack. Like, as soon as they turn through the second turn pin is basically a U-turn. So once you go through, you slow down through the turn pin, and as soon as you go through the turn pin, you just bike your butt off. You just go as fast as you can. And I was not ready for that too. And then the pack was just way in front of me at all of a sudden. Like, it was like a snap of my fingers and they were all right in front of me. Prior to the race, all I did really to prepare for that race was just watch videos on YouTube. And for the life of me, I could not keep up with the pack. So they were going much faster than I could go. It's one of these things that the more you are in the pack, you're able to spread the work. It's not as, I think the theory is like that. You don't have to work as hard because there's headwind and then the wind's pushing you back. When you're in a group, the wind is distributed amongst everybody in the group, so you don't have to expend as much energy. So I think I did like three laps all by myself, and I just knew that I was not going anywhere. I mean, they were probably much faster than me, even without the help of the group. So I stopped, like you can just bow out, you can just go to the side, and then the race just kept going. And granted, this was in the 45 and older category. So I was smoked. I could not keep up. But I really think I'll do something like that again, just for fun. So they have stuff like that every Saturday morning at 6:30 or 7 in SRP, near Il Corso, Lantao, that road. And I heard also in the Cebu Doctors University in North Recla. I'm going to try checking that out too. All in all, fun race. I wish I could have stayed with the group. The support from the group would have been really good. Help against the headwind would have been really good. Help in general would have been really good. This podcast is sponsored by Scott Pacaldo. Behind the scenes of 032, we actually get plenty of help. We're a very small operation, but we do have key team members helping out. And one of them for the longest time is Scott Pacaldo. So the help that we do is we don't have anybody full-time. These are all contractual. So whenever there's a project, we ask them to help out. So Scott Pacaldo first helped us out as a photographer. Then at some point, he started posting stuff for us on social media and WordPress. And then eventually, he's been creating online content for us also. So sometimes on Instagram, I'll post a clip, like a 032 Conversations episode clip. It's basically a thumbnail and the subtitles. Not really subtitles. It's the words that are being said in the podcast. So he encodes them and he makes it into a video. He does that for us. So I told him, hey, bye, you want to sponsor the podcast? He's like, yes, I'll sponsor it. Thank you, Scott Pacaldo, for sponsoring the podcast. So if you need help in creating social media materials, you can reach out to him on Instagram at Scott Pacaldo or visit his website, scottpacaldo.com. For this episode of the podcast, we interviewed Kathryn Layno, or people like to call her Kat Layno for short. And honestly, this was one of my favorite interviews so far. Kat was refreshingly open and honest. You know, sometimes you can tell when you talk to a person how comfortable they are with themselves. And that showed when I talked to Kat. Like, she was really cool. She was open to talking about anything. And it's really nice when you're talking to somebody who just knows who they are. Yeah, like sometimes during interviews, some people, they have like a shell. And then you kind of have to knock on the shell a little bit so that they can crawl out of their shell and then they can show who they are. But Kat was the total opposite. She was good to go from the start. It was really fun. If you don't know who Kathryn Layno is, she's a freelance artist, cat mother, food lover, and child of the sea. But whether it's through illustration, color, or music, she has always been driven by the idea of pushing a story forward without words. She's known in the comic world, so her work appears in Space, Skyward, 1 Week in the Library, He-Man, Batman, Legends of the Dark Knight. So yeah, like locally, people know her as this person who's been able to do work for DC Comics. But as you will find out, she is a lot more than this description. She's a lot more than that. I learned a lot while talking to her. In fact, I learned a lot of new terms like polyamory. Yeah, we talked about that. demi-sexual, the male gaze. It was a fun interview. So, before we get to the interview, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to 032 Conversations. If you're listening to this from the website, great. But honestly, the best way to listen to a podcast or to 032 Conversations is to download a podcast app on your phone or use Spotify and search 032 Conversations and just subscribe. Every time we have a new episode, it'll inform you or it'll download it straight into your phone and you can listen to it anytime without having to stream. Okay, let's get to that conversation with Kathryn Layno.
It's not ideal for recording situations though.
Yes,
It's really like usually when I record, if I record music or like I want to sample something at home, I do it at like either very late at night or very, very early in the morning. And that totally depends on if Morgan is asleep or not. Okay, if she's asleep, I can't do anything. Like everything has to be
like
quiet.
You guys, it's all in your bedroom.
Yeah, my bedroom is my office also.
Yeah. Okay. I noticed that you posted a thing that Led Zepp
Yeah.
like bit, like little clip. Wow, that was really good.
Okay, paggaw kayo. Like,
I really listened to it. I'm like, anyway.
Karaoke skills.
Yeah. So
Sige.
a little bit for levels.
Okay.
The nice thing is you just got it and you started talking. So
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
But a little bit for levels. Your name and what you do.
My name is Kathryn Layno, and I am a freelance illustrator and colorist in Cebu.
And then, still for levels, what did you have for breakfast?
I had bacon and eggs cooked in bacon grease along with roasted garlic.
Along with, how can you have eggs cooked in?
Yeah,
so
like you cook the bacon
first,
and then you just put the eggs in the bacon grease, and then that's it. And then we roasted like 4 garlic kanang cloves bitaw yesterday. So we just used those today.
Does it make the egg taste better?
Yes, actually it does. But I still add like salt and pepper and like basil and whatever. But
so at
like,
least you don't need to like
add butter or anything. Yeah, wala, diretso na. So it's a lot faster.
Wait. we cook breakfast at home.
Is that the only time you've never done that before, day? Like the bacon grease?
No, I've never done that before.
It's really good. Also saves you on like
butter.
effort. Like it's right there, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it saves you on butter. Like I end up putting a lot of butter for egg.
It still tastes good actually if you add butter in the bacon grease. Then it's like extra layers of yummy.
Oh, I'm gonna do that. So wait, what kind of egg? Like sunny side up or scrambled?
Usually I like sunny side ups, but like I tend to fold them. I forgot what that's called, like an over easy or something. Forgot what my mother-in-law called that. But it's basically it's like a sunny side up, and before it cooks on the top or dries on the top, I fold it so it looks like a triangle, like almost a pizza slice.
Oh, okay.
So it pockets everything, and everything stays kind of wet inside instead of like nakarang mugahi bito. So.
Oh, yeah, I have a problem with my sunny side eggs. Like I think it's also the pan. Like it sticks to the pan.
That depends just on the pan. But the bacon grease actually really helps
Really
with this.
helps.
Yeah, it things don't stick as much is what I noticed. But also it really does depend on your equipment.
Yeah, our equipment is not great. Yeah, okay, sige. Okay. I don't know if you've I don't know if you know the whole concept of the podcast.
Not super familiar. I think the first time I encountered it was during LitFest when you did kind of like a live conversation
with
thing.
Larry Ipil.
Yeah, which was really sayang. You couldn't really hear it very well from the artist alley tables.
We recorded that.
Oh, you recorded it?
Yeah,
Sige,
I
sige.
released
I'll
it.
listen
We
to
released it.
Yeah, sige.
Oh, but generally it's just actually monato. It was just like a conversation. I'm probably gonna cut this part out.
Yeah, that's
because
fine.
I've repeated this so many times. I just tell it usually to the guest. So I just assume that the guest has no idea what they're here for.
Well, I've never done a podcast before, so kinda like usually interviews. It's very straightforward. They're just like, your work, blah blah blah. But I've never had actual conversations that were recorded, so that's different.
The first local podcast that I encountered was si Kang John Amor.
Ah, yeah, the Tres Comequeros.
Yeah, and then I listened to that for a while. But the thing is, like, it's too specific for me.
Yeah, it's not. I love John. Like, he's been my friend since I was 14. but it is a very specific category, and it's not as freewheely and organic as I'd like it to be sometimes, because they always have to go back to, the main course, which is comics.
What they're talking about. No, but I think if you really like those
it's
comics,
great.
like grabe ka.
It's great, Jude, yeah.
I remember sending him a message like 4 years ago about like how to start a podcast.
Yeah, because he's actually the reason I got into streaming, like art streaming, like live.
Mo ba?
Kanang i-broadcast name mo imong work. Like sometimes I use a webcam and I draw on paper, or I'll share my desktop like screen share nako so that they can see my digital art process. He was the one who really pushed me to be on Twitch. So I started that like maybe last month, and not as active or as consistent as he is, but it's been pretty good actually.
Twitch, no? Yeah, because I want to get to that. I want to get to like I'm particularly interested with how you became, your freelancing, your artwork, your Patreon, and then your Twitch also. No? But I thought a good place to start for this, conversation would be because I saw this picture on your Instagram where you were cleaning your katana.
Oh. Yeah.
And then that was honestly pretty badass. And I'm like, and then I know pagid you're not just keeping it for like decoration. No. Like you know how to use it. Because you do
Kenjutsu. Kenjutsu and Kendo.
What's the difference?
Kenjutsu is more of like the root of everything. That's like samurai fighting training. So it's like live blades and forms, not so much on the points or sparring in terms of sport system. Kendo is a sport. So it's a bit more streamlined. There are certain targets that you can't hit on the body because it makes it difficult to score. So I find Kendo to be more of like the sport version or the sport adaptation of Kenjutsu. But in itself, it's still a discipline. Like it's still intense in its own way. Like I find Kenjutsu more, the stress, or I wouldn't say stress, the effort and the draining part of it is more in the mental aspect, because you have to focus on so many details and so many things that you have to do with your whole body. Every finger has to be in the right place. And Kendo is just like physically draining. Kendo it's cardio.
Like so like the Kendo is like, it's the actual sparring also, I guess.
Yeah.
But
like,
Kenjutsu
prioritizes forms and like principles. So there is still sparring, but it's not in the same way as it is in Kendo, where like you have to, when you claim a point, you have to have like, what's that called? Like kikentai each. So it's like 3 principles. Like your spirit has to be right. Your strike has to be right. Your form has to be right, and all of that. In Kenjutsu, it's more just like you have to kill that person.
No, in Kendo, you mean?
No, in Kenjutsu.
Okay.
Because in Kendo, your targets are where the armor is. And in Kenjutsu, your targets are where the armors have gaps.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually, it took me a while to transition because I was used to the other way. So it took me a while.
What did you mean by spirit has to be right?
In Kendo, or I think most Japanese martial arts, there's something called a kiai, which is also in karate. It's like basically when you do that, it's like a spirit yell, you shout. It does, it helps you relax, but it also like empowers you in a way and calms you down and strengthens you at the same time. If you do not hit at the same time as your shout, and your foot has to stomp at the same time also, so it's like 3 things have to happen all at the same time, it doesn't count.
Oh, ba?
It's very, very, very particular. It's a very difficult thing to get used to.
In Kendo?
Yeah, in
So
Kendo.
even if you're sparring, and then you hit the person,
if you didn't do it right, like with all those elements involved and proper follow through at the end, which is called zanshin, if you don't do that properly, it doesn't matter. They won't count it. Yeah, I mean, that's why it's a sport.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool because I remember, you have a group, right?
Yeah.
We sit in, I'm blanking on the name of the gym.
In Racket Zone. Near in Montebello, like compound area, diba?
Okay.
Behind Gaisano Country Mall.
It's not in what's this?
Metro Sports?
In Salinas Drive, yeah.
No, not anymore.
It used to be.
It used to be, but like sometimes it's difficult because they have events there in the big gym area where the the wall climbing thing is in Metro Sports. So
it gets gubot.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like it's difficult to hear each other when they have like blasting speakers for like music and
because
stuff.
I remember playing basketball there in the one in Salinas Drive a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah, we were still there.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
I remember seeing this group.
Yeah, that's the one.
I guess what do you call it? Kendo
Club.
Kendo Club. No. And then so those were. I don't think you were there. I'm not sure.
Probably, I don't know. It depends. Like, if it was 1 or 2 years ago, there were times where I was inactive because I was busy. So it really depends. I might have been there. You might just not have seen me because we wear helmets.
Moment now. That's why I wasn't. Well, I remember. No, they were doing like drills and stuff also without.
Okay. Yeah, then I probably wasn't there that day. Yeah.
How'd you get into that, guy? That's not something. Like, you're the only person I know who does that.
Aw. I wish there were more people.
Well, yeah, so like invite them to your to the group.
I started doing Kenjutsu around 2003, I think, when I was in college, and then I kind of stopped doing it for a while. Okay, I left for the US, and then I came back. I didn't do anything martial artsy for a number of years, like 10 years. I took a break. And then I got back into Kenjutsu and I stayed. And then one of our senseis who moved to Davao for work reasons, there's a kendo club in Davao and he joined it and he really liked it. So when he visited Cebu, I think 2015, he was like, I want to have a session with you guys. I want you to try this and see if you like it. And if you do, like, we can keep doing it. If you don't, then that's okay. But even though, slightly, very difficult for me, but other people had an easier time transitioning. But it was something we were interested in. So we ended up continuing it, and it's kind of been like that since 2015.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's
so
how it started.
It's called the Kendo Club.
Yeah, the Cebu Kendo Club.
Cebu Kendo Club.
So predominantly, the more senior students are originally, and some are still ongoing Kenjutsu practitioners. And then we grew from that because like more people from different backgrounds. Like we have someone who has had an Aikido background. We've had people with Arnis background or no background at all. And then they joined up with us after a while.
It looks like fun. Like, who doesn't love swinging a stick?
That depends on how much you like bruises because you'll get a lot of those
sure,
too.
Yeah, well,
the armor doesn't protect everything.
Not every sport has some sort of like,
some contact sports have physical risks. Like, yeah, for sure.
No, but like, I feel like every sport like has
I don't know.
physical risks.
Does chess count as a sport? Because
okay.
like, it really depends.
I was just comparing it to basketball and cycling.
Yeah, that's a contact sport.
Cycling, you can crash. Basketball, I've twisted my ankle. I still
swimming,
can't play.
you can get a cramp. Like, there's risks when you push your body.
It's normal. So, like, if you wanted to get into it, like, do you need like certain equipment?
To start, usually what we do when it's a beginner or when you have people coming in who want to try it, the first session is free, just so you can try it. And usually we have spare, shinai, which is like the wooden bamboo sword that we use in kendo. And, you join us for a session. And then if you like it, then you can come back and then we can talk about like the monthly fees, etc. But usually you're not required to have any equipment until you're kind of sure that you actually want it. And then,
so okay or good. Like you can join even if you're kind of not sure.
Yeah, like you're not sure, you want to try it. Like we have some students that are still wearing, like jogging pants and a shirt, and then they just have a shinai that they borrow, or if they want to buy one, they can. But the uniform, like the whole gi and hakama thing, which is incredibly hot in Cebu, but that sort of can come in later. Usually they'll tell you. Yeah, and usually they'll tell you like, hey, like you're doing pretty well. You should start wearing the uniform now because it looks like you're gonna stay.
No, and yeah, Murag, you mentioned. I think we were chatting, and you mentioned that there's going to be a tournament coming up, but I don't know. It's unlikely that this episode will be out by then.
It's fine. But, it's okay.
What's happening in the tournament?
It's a national tournament, so this is the third national tournament by the United Kendo Federation of the Philippines, and it's the first time Cebu's hosting. So the first tournament, I think, was in Manila. The second was in Davao. And basically, kendo clubs from all over the country will be coming here to compete. And there are also some guests from overseas. Like, I think Singapore is sending a club also to compete in the team tournament. But I don't think they're participating, or I don't think foreigners are allowed to participate in the individuals tournament. That is for the local clubs only. So yeah, like that's pretty much what's happening.
Where is it happening?
In Racket Zone, same place where
here.
Yeah, around October 27 and 28, actually.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm.
Yeah, wala lang. I'm just curious kay, how often, I mean, like katulad when I saw your katana, I'm like, I mean, actually the first thing that came in my head was like, do you ever use it?
Yeah, we do have, it's called tameshigiri. It's basically when you practice cutting something. So usually we use banana stalks and it's so that we can practice like proper form, proper cutting, and generally, you can kind of understand depending on the thickness of the stalk, like, okay, this is technically a leg. So if I can cut this right.
I didn't think you were going to say that.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Like you can see the efficacy of what you're practicing in application.
Have you ever tried using it against a human?
No. I would hope that I never have to.
Okay, just nerdy.
Yeah,
weapon.
It's like
curiosity.
Yeah, I like studying it partially also because actually no, I'd say it's the major reason I got into it in college is because Kenjutsu is kind of fading in Japan. Younger people aren't as interested in it, and Kendo has a very strong following internationally, but Kenjutsu is a lot more difficult to get into or find. So yeah,
that's why you got into it.
Yeah, because sayang ba, like. Basically, these sword schools are in Japan, at least during the feudal era. Let's say every house, like major house, had their own style. Usually, that's how it was. If that house was defeated, majority of the time, everybody who knew how to fight like the people in the house were also killed. So the styles that are left in existence now are the ones that survived for like 400 years, 500 years. So it's like it's kind of a waste that. If it disappears just because of lack of interest, it feels like it's a shame. So, preservation of the art was my primary reason for getting into it.
Really, I would have thought that it was just like a break from your everyday.
Well, that too. But when I was in college, that was my PE.
Oh, okay.
You had the option of dancing or like ping pong or something. And I was like, no, I'm gonna do this. So that's how I got into it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Because I feel like it's really important to have some sort of physical activity outside of
the desk job.
Yeah. Like I really feel like it's important.
Yeah.
No. So we can do you remember when kami Jason went over to your
the tiny studio?
that house of yours way back in 2011?
Yeah.
We took like a little video. We interviewed you because I think Ara wrote. Chaudhary wrote.
What's it called? Like geeky girls or something like that in Cebu. I can't remember, but Sean Maynard was the first one.
Yes, I believe. I think it was Geek Goddesses of Cebu or something. Cebu. It was a little. It was a. It was we featured. Yeah, you guys.
Yeah.
No, and then I was just thinking back to it because kami Jason had no idea what we were doing. Honestly,
that's fine. I mean, that's how you start. That you don't. Like, you can jump in and then figure it out after.
Oh, yeah. No, that's the whole... I'm doing that every day,
Yeah, same. Like, whenever I stream on Twitch, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do today. I have no idea what I'm going to draw, but I'm going to try.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of the time I don't really have a plan in my mind. I'm just like, hi, everybody. I'm just going to, muck around and see what happens, and then I'll end up in conversations with my in the chat box about the most random things.
But you're drawing at the same time.
Yeah, but I can talk and I can draw at the same time.
Wait, sige. So I'm kind of familiar with Twitch in a sense of the gaming aspect.
Yeah, that's the major thing is the gaming.
Yeah, but I've never actually looked at Twitch.
Okay.
I looked at the YouTube videos that
are they're made by the Twitch people.
Yeah, so it's
compilations and everything.
I used last year I got into Hearthstone. And then
Addict.
Yeah, I really got into it. And then at some point it was just taking up a little bit more time than I wanted.
Yeah, that tends to be the thing. The important thing is that you're aware that that's happening so you can kind of step back.
I'm all bit now. So what was happening was, and then I didn't, because, when I was growing up, I was into a lot of video games.
Yeah.
And then there was no such thing as YouTube or streaming.
Yeah, we had to learn everything by ourselves.
Well, it's not the learning, It's not the learning because one time I asked with my little cousin.
he's young, like in high school or something. And then I asked, or in grade school, and then I asked him, "Hey, so what is it that you guys, what you're doing lately, and or like, you know, what you do for fun?" I think I forgot the game. Let's just say Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat. Oh yeah, oh that's cool. So where do you play it? No, I just watch it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he gave me the sense that, and then this is the sense that I got after watching Hearthstone on YouTube. It feels like you're playing.
Yeah, but you're not.
But you're not. So
You're living vicariously.
I know it feels kind of sad.
Not necessarily. Like for me, the reason I brought up learning is because, you know, back then how you could not go on Google and look up how to get through a particular puzzle in a Legend of Zelda game or Final Fantasy or something. And now you can just watch somebody do it.
Yeah.
And you can ask them questions and you can get direct feedback about that thing. So there's that. Like game guides are no longer necessary. There's a time around the late 90s and early 2000s where they were selling those books, like how to get through things, and like Game Facts was so huge. Now that's not even really, if you look at like gaming cases now, you look inside sa una na manual, diba? Wala. There's nothing anymore because like
because everything is...
everything is there. All the content is generated by the audience themselves, which is actually like amazing in a way. And also there are some people, like for me, growing up, I wasn't allowed to have a console. Like my mom was like very like, I'll buy you strategy games for PC, but you're not getting a PlayStation. Yeah, like you're not allowed to have those things. Like I lived in the arcade every weekend because I could not do that at home. And so part of the thing is like I have friends who are PC gamers, predominantly PC gamers, and they don't really want to dish out the money to buy like a PlayStation 4 because that's really expensive. So they'll just watch the games that they can't play rather than spend the money on it.
Pretty much sayang. Like, wouldn't you rather be playing the games though?
It depends.
Because that's what I felt when I was watching. So
nasuya ka.
No. So like what happened was, so like I can't. So with Hearthstone,
yeah.
You kind of have to be.
Yeah, there's not really a story or anything, you know. It's a card game.
No, it's a card game.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. No,
yeah,
but
that you have to be actively engaging in that. It's not like watching a movie, you know.
Yeah, exactly. No, but if you're watching it on, like, I'd watch it on YouTube. I realized I was getting the same
high.
It's
the same kick. Yeah.
Yeah, the same kick, whatever it is.
Especially if they do the same thing you would do, like in that situation. Then you're like. It
know,
enables you, yeah.
You know, you're right.
Yeah.
I was starting to be like, yeah, dude, in my head, like I was making moves na.
Yeah, and then they'll
so
do
play
it.
This card, play this card. I'm like, yep.
The confirmation is the kick, like, or even if they do something you didn't think of and it was really cool.
Oh, that one. That was gonna go. That was the other side of the coin. I was like, or that one where it's like, oh my gosh,
like,
I didn't think
of
about
that
this.
exactly. Yeah.
But then I started realizing that, I'm not playing the game as much anymore.
Yeah, you're just watching.
I'm just watching. And then what happened was, you know, with Hearthstone, you there's like a new expansion like every 2 months or something. And if you don't play,
you need to adjust. The catch up game is
then you don't get the new cards unless you pay. And you refuse to pay. So
same.
Yeah. No, but I did really well not paying for a while.
Yeah. It's fine.
Oh, anyway, so Twitch. So for art, is it like, so there's a I don't know, a camera pointed to your face, and then I guess it's a screen
share, yeah,
share.
Like, yeah, because I have a Cintiq, so it's basically like a monitor you can draw on. Like,
okay.
Yeah, so I work on that, and I just share the digital space, like the screen share, so that I don't need to put a camera on my work.
Oh, but how about, is there like, so there's no camera on your face?
There is, depending, but like,
depends on what you want.
Yeah, like, depending also on what time, because I usually start drawing at like 4 a.m. It's kind of dark and someone's still asleep in the back, so I usually don't have cameras on around that time. But if I'm drawing when the day's out and like she's not home or like not bothered by the camera being present, then I'll turn it on.
How does one grow an audience on Twitch?
Consistency. Like, you just have to be consistent in either your streaming and or your interaction with people. So it's still a lot of socializing. Like, I got into it because I started watching John streaming and I met people in his stream. Like, I chatted with people in his stream that also stream. Yeah. So there's
like a chat room or something.
Yeah, like a chat box next to the stream video itself, you know? So it's like, I met other people there and I found out they also had accounts. So I started following them and talking to them and everything. And then when John encouraged me to try it, I did. And they would recommend me to people too. Like, oh, like my friend just started streaming. Like you should watch her and stuff. So it is still socializing, like quite a bit of socializing online.
No? That's so cool because that was not,
Yeah,
that was not, I mean, as early as, at least here in the Philippines, maybe as early as 4 or 3 years ago, like that was not in our consciousness.
No, it really wasn't. Like, YouTube was a thing, but streaming live content, not as much.
Mo bitaw? No, it's, what's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you also. But I also want to know with your story and how you got into like, art and illustration. I think when I read Ara's piece, I reread it. You know,
oh God,
7 years later.
Yeah.
And then it seemed like your mom was a big part of you becoming an artist, or she at least encouraged you.
She definitely encouraged it. Like initially, I was more inclined to music as a child. I was actually the worst artist among my siblings. Like, my sister was joining oil painting competitions. Jed was the one that my second brother was the one that got me into comics and stuff because that was his thing. And then my oldest brother, do you remember those like Marvel cards with the stats on the back?
Yeah, I love those.
Yeah, like Cosmic Strength 7. Yeah. He used to draw the covers for that for fun. And he was like 13 years old and he could copy that. Like it would look like the cards, like with oil paint. He was really good at it. And I was the singer and violinist. So like that was not in my game at all. But I kind of started really getting into it more to be in animation. Cause, you know, like in terms of generational, I'm the one that gets access, or I was the one that had access to the most like cartoons and stuff. Like they're all coming out around that time. Like I was the youngest. So, and they also stopped drawing. Like once they got into high school, they just kind of stopped and I picked it up and then I just never let go. And then music kind of fell.
But well, you know, when you say it kind of fell, like
it's no longer the thing I was gonna plan on doing for a living.
I know. What I'm saying is, I want to give like a quick shout out to your ability to do music. We just mentioned your Led Zepp clip, but I also found your like SoundCloud account.
Oh yeah,
you had
God,
that
that's
one
old.
song. Dude, it's not. I can't. There was one song that I listened to.
Like original or
yeah, it was an original.
Okay.
I listened to the original. To the originals. Man, I am going to look for it because it was so good. I think it was a ukulele. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
There was one, you had two, I think there was two here in the original. One was really short, but the other one was like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I think it was A Hand Never Mine.
Yeah, that
one was really good.
It's heavy. Actually, in my mind, initially, when I wrote that, it was supposed to be blues, but I didn't have a guitar. I just had a ukulele, so that's why it came out like that. But the arrangement in my mind was very bluesy originally. Yeah. But like, lack of instruments. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, just say, well, long way of me saying that, you know, you were not shabby at music at all. So you let go of the music thing, and then?
Well, like, my dad is also a musician, and he also wrote songs. Actually, there are 3 generations of songwriters in my family. My brother's daughter is also, she's a drummer, and she also writes songs. She's been writing since she was like 5 or 6, like writing songs. And it's kind of the way we write. It's like a diary for us, but like what we're going through or anything. That's just our way of getting it out. But we kind of also know that that's just not a feasible way to make money for most people. And I went into the other not so feasible way to make money, according to my dad, which is art. But, you know, like, like my dad was like, you know, like I was supposed to be the lawyer because like all my siblings are doctors or in medical. My dad's like, ay, ikaw mag-lawyer because he wanted to be a lawyer. And I was like, I don't know if I want that. Like, I know I could do it, but I don't know if I want to. And my dad was like, sige, like you want to take fine arts in San Carlos. So you do that. And then after you finish advertising, you go into law, and then maybe you go into corporate law or something because you'll be more familiar with advertising things. And I was like, okay, sure. If I, like, when I finish, I didn't finish, so loophole.
Mo ba?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, oh, good guy, he gave you.
Yeah, he did give me an option, but I didn't graduate. So yeah, I just went loophole, Dad. And then so yeah, I was that teenager that was like, I don't do plan Bs. Like I'm just like, I know what I want, and I'm gonna make it work no matter what.
You
like
buckle
that.
down.
Yeah, like that was me.
Because also at the same time, if you were, and then I am 100% certain of this, like if you force yourself to do something that you do not want to do, that you do not enjoy, then that is not a way to live a life, man.
No.
Like, you know?
It's really not. Like even in the corporate world, like I tried working in-house, which is part of why like I decided to stick to freelance because
Like in-house graphic work, that's
yeah,
sort of
like
okay,
here
okay.
in Cebu, and the studios are either like usually the pay is not super great. Like I can earn more staying home, so that's one of the reasons I do stay home because
I was gonna say it probably
yeah.
pays more to stay. To do
yeah
your
because
own
you
thing.
spend on like for me I don't have a car, so like I commute and then I have to wear decent clothes and make an effort to look decent, and it's like versus at home I can just be like I feel like just wearing a shirt. That's fine.
No, but
like,
at the same time, I'm sure you've because for the longest time I've worked from home too for the longest time, and then there are some challenges in a sense.
oh yeah, like discipline.
Yeah,
That's for me, or at least what people have said to me is like the thing they struggle with the most is like the discipline of managing your time.
yeah, because like you mentioned, like your workspace is in the same place as your bedroom.
Yeah.
So you literally turn your head and then you see your bed
And then you can sleep.
and then you can sleep.
I don't necessarily have that problem because I have an insomnia issue. So I just see the bed and I'm like, would be nice, but it's impossible. So I'm just gonna, my problem is actually more on, no, not so much lately because I'm usually pretty good at like spacing my gaming time. Because I am aware that like, I've been doing this too long. I'm not being productive. It's fine. But Assassin's Creed Odyssey just came out and it's like game of the year material. It's really good. And when my husband got it for me, I played it for 10 hours straight. Like,
Wait, is that like that role playing game?
no,
Where
it's
just big world and
it's open, what's that called? Open world
Yeah,
style
yeah,
gaming.
yeah.
But it's like a mix of like, I'd like to think of it like as a mix of like kind of like Skyrim style playing, but with Metal Gear, because there's like stealth and assassination involved.
I know my references are gonna be from when I was in high school.
Metal Gear was a thing in high school.
No, but like
We're not. Their age gap's not that big.
No, I didn't play Metal Gear.
I didn't
that came out on
either.
PlayStation. Oh
yeah,
no, that was like
I watched my friends play, but I never played it.
My what did you call it? What did you call it? The
Open world gaming,
game was Daggerfall.
Oh my god! Yes, that's
Yeah.
great. Actually, everything like Oblivion and
It kind of stemmed from that game,
yeah,
right?
it did. Like I would say that is where it started. Like that sort of
I
thing.
really enjoyed that game.
Yeah. My god, I forgot about Daggerfall.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm
I
here
got
to
stuck.
revive it. It deserves its space in
It does.
history.
It really does. It's this is the thing. Like I've been trying to get some of like my younger relatives or even like my girlfriend to play like older games that we grew up with because the content's really good. But they're so spoiled by the graphics and the physics now that they won't even give it a chance. And then like you have to reframe your mind for the context of the time and try to like kanang mabilib ka ba na this is what they were able to do at that time, but they're unable to suspend that. I find it such a waste because not everything's gonna be remastered.
I know. I mean, I'll be honest, I can't blame them. Like, so I was like super into gaming in high school, and then I realized that I'm not gonna be able to graduate college.
Yeah,
because I barely passed college. I almost flunked out my freshman year.
yeah.
No? Well, I mean, I'm not comparing me to you.
No,
huh?
it's okay. I didn't do very good either, but not for the same reasons. But yeah, I understand.
No, but like, so I decided like, okay, I won't buy a game, and then when I was in college, I used to play with my friends because I lived in a dorm. So I would use their computers, but I just decided I'd never put a game in my computer.
Yeah.
And then the first game I bought since high school was like 3 or 4 years ago, or 5 years ago. It was XCOM.
Oh my god.
Right? Because I used to play XCOM in high school.
Yeah. So you're just throwbacking to the.
Yeah, basically that's what
yeah.
I did. And then when I started playing it, imagine no real games for like 10 years and all of a sudden you get to it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why your girlfriend would be and your cousins would be spoiled by the
current what
it's
output.
crazy.
It's really crazy what they're able to do
yeah,
now.
the old XCOM was like it was really fun, but the
You compare it, it's like this is a whole other level.
it's crazy.
There are even certain games that are still ongoing. Like Warframe was a game that like my husband and I started playing mid 2000s or something. I forgot when it came out, and it's still going now. But they changed it because it's an online game. Like it's like a shooter / like co-op thing. But that game continues to evolve. It started with just like fighting. Now there's like spaceships. There's like social things. There's like you can walk on a planet. Like there's just like weird things happen. It's always constantly evolving and growing, and it's just like what. Like this isn't, I'm still playing the same game, but even that game itself is continuing to step up the bar. Like not coming out with like a Warframe 2. It's just, no, this is Warframe. It's gonna change.
It's like a totally different game. I didn't realize, because so I have a very limited aspect of gaming right now, but I experienced that a little bit with Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Because Hearthstone in the end it's like a Magic the Gathering basically, right? But they would add like a segment here that's totally different, and then it just becomes part of the game.
Yeah.
Like 3 months later, you can't imagine what it was like
without it.
Yeah. And then they just keep adding and adding and adding, and then at some point I was like, wait, so what did it look like
before?
Because it was Hearthstone is like a 3-year-old game, I think, or something. Yeah. And I got into it like just last year. And I've stopped since because, I got tired of keeping up. But I imagine if I look at it now, it's going to look like a totally different game from last year. No? And then that is pretty amazing compared to, what they used to do before.
Yeah, where like you had to wait a long time before they would come out with an expansion.
And you'd have to buy it too.
Yeah.
Or a whole new...
They still kind of have stuff like that, and then they call it DLC, right? Like downloadable content, and some of those things are free. A lot of the time they're not. And they're small purchases, but the small things add up. You just don't see it because you're like, oh, it's just $1. And you buy 20.
Oh yeah, Mobito. No, I know.
It's a trap.
That's why, that's exactly it. That's why I refuse to, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna work harder than all these other players. I refuse to pay for the...
Yeah, pay for an edge.
Yeah.
I also don't like that. Like I prefer games where money does not translate to an edge over other people. Cause I prefer games with like cosmetic things. Example, like you can buy or you can use money to pay for things that change the look of your character or the look of your boat, but nothing has to do with your ability and your skill in playing.
Well, Hearthstone is kind of different in that sense, wherein like, you pay to buy cards.
Yeah.
No?
Like in Magic the Gathering.
In Magic the Gathering. But you can, like, the way I was doing it was that I would just...
Earn
the
credits to get the cards,
Yeah, which is a slog. It's really this...
Like Warframe's the same. It has a system where you can pay in cash if you want, or you can, like, manually hunt for all the tiny elements to build this new suit together. It takes forever, but that's how I went about it too. Because number one, I'm cheap. And number two... There's just something a lot more fulfilling for me going to the different planets and questing and getting these items and putting it together. Just like, it's part of the game.
It's also
for me.
fun.
Yeah.
It's also fun to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
But then, at the same time, I can totally imagine like, okay, I don't have the time, but I still want to enjoy.
Yeah, and just like, here, I'll just use my real, the time I spent in my real job translated to the money I earned for that time and just.
Yeah, and then at the same time, you're supporting the game.
Yeah.
Like, it's a game that you presumably enjoy.
Yeah.
Right?
For me, that would be worth it. Like, if I, like, that's happened before because I play Overwatch too, and then there are times where, like, there are big events, and I don't have the time to play because of deadlines or, like, commitments in terms of, like, family and stuff. So, that, I'll spend, like, $10 to get, like, a bunch of loot boxes, and that's it. And I won't touch it for a while. But it's a game I do want to continue to support. So, and they don't have, like, monthly fees like MMORPGs and stuff. So
like in World of Warcraft, there's like a monthly...
you still pay like $14.99 or something like that. Yeah, a lot of online games do have fees for monthly like time.
Yeah. No, I mean, and then it seems like what's also cool is that culture of supporting the game, no? Because kind of like in a way you've been able to hone that mindset into your into what you do also, like kind of like Patreon is an example of that, no? Because I mean, I'm gonna be honest, like one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about Patreon is 6 totally selfish reasons. Because last month I started a Patreon also for the podcast.
Yeah.
And then just researching on who's doing it ba. And then so I looked at John, so I also asked John if he wanted to say, but he's in Davao, so it makes
that's
it a
why
little
it's
bit
hard.
more difficult. But then I looked at your Patreon, and then you've been going at it for a while.
I disappeared for a bit though. Like when I started, I was pretty active, and then I kind of had a really bad depressive era of like 2 to 3 years, so I disappeared. I actually just got back into it this year. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, because like it took that long to get everything back together in my head to be able to push myself to do this again. So kind of like getting back into it.
When did you open the account?
I think 2015. It was around the time like my career or like my notoriety as an artist online is kind of tied to the Legend of Korra fandom, because when it ended, spoiler, but you guys should have watched the show by now. But like when Korra and Asami kind of get together at the end, the internet exploded and I exploded, because it's like bisexual representation wasn't a thing in cartoons in the West. And that happening was like a mind-blowing experience for me. And I kind of just started churning art out for it, like for fun, like, because I had an office job at the time. So my fun time was drawing fan art, like comics and stuff for that pairing. And I kind of went viral because of that. And then they were like saying, you should probably open a Patreon because people want to see more, would pay for this content, like high-res versions of the files and exclusive things just related to this stuff. And even now, like it's 2018, even now, that's still majority of the people that are supporting me on Patreon are the people that followed me from that explosion of the internet.
Wait. Me, I'm not in the know. What is this Legend of
Korra?
Legend of Korra?
It's the second.
It's an anime show?
No, it's not anime. It's actually a Nickelodeon show.
Oh.
Yeah, but the animation studio they got is in Korea. And they're the same studio that did the animation for Voltron, the Legendary Defender, that's on Netflix. Same studio. But that one's by DreamWorks. So these guys did Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay.
Yeah, and they basically, it's like when an avatar dies, a new one appears. There's always an avatar. So Korra is the next installment of that series.
So when that series was going on, you were inspired by it, so you decided to.
Yeah, like just for fun, like like it's.
Where were you posting it? Like on Twitter?
On Tumblr for the most part.
Tumblr,
yeah,
okay, yeah.
Because like I don't know why. Like I met a lot of friends on Tumblr, so I decided to kind of stay there. I'm not as active in terms of like sharing content and stuff. It's more just like supporting my friends or like projects that I like Kickstarters. Like I'll reblog those things and then posting my own work, and that's kind of what really made my like home-based career kind of take off.
So it exploded in Tumblr.
Yeah, like I drew this thing. I can't remember what year or what title I named it and when, but it was around the time the finale happened, and I drew basically like four panels on one piece that showed because it's 4 seasons, showed what their relationship looked like in the 4 seasons, and it ends with them being together, and that got something like 50-something thousand notes on Tumblr within.
Wow.
Yeah, very, very quickly.
Can I ask for a link?
Yeah. Wait, I'll see if I can get it on my phone. But like, yeah, like it was kind of weird. I was not expecting that. It was just celebrating the fandom. Like, I even some of the songs I have on SoundCloud that are originals are just things I wrote because of fandoms. I have a Korasami song in there. I have one from Carmilla after the show ended, and like that. It's just my way of like, it's like song fan art.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
sure.
yeah, it's just another way for me to express my fandoms, really.
So your Tumblr account exploded, and then because that happens to people every now and then where they create stuff, but the the part that is interesting to me is that you were able to like pivot it in such a way where it became a very important part of. I mean, I'm gonna assume did it become a you mentioned that I forgot the exact word that you used now at this point. Your professional career like exploded or something.
Yeah. Like it made it so I could be home based full time.
Yeah.
Instead of like sidelining to like I had a day job, I had an office job, and then I was also taking in freelance projects on the side, which was very draining. But this made it so that I could make a living just drawing stuff I wanted.
Mona, that's so how did you get so like I mentioned, like sometimes occasionally it happens that there's this boom, but somehow you were able to pivot it. So you just as easy as that, you just created a Patreon. And then right after, and then because the Patreon, of course.
Wait, I'll see if I can link this to you.
Yeah.
I'll copy this. How do you send it? I'll send it to you on Facebook lang.
Yeah, sure. So people said you should. Before that, did you even hear about Patreon?
I had heard about it before because some of the people I followed, like other artists, were like they were already on it, and I wasn't sure I was ready. Like I was just like, oh, like they're really good. I'm not at that level. I don't have a following like that because it's usually more advisable to start a Patreon when you already have a following. It's like you can kind of do both, but I noticed like a lot of people will get into it after they know they have people that will support them, just to be sure. And that's it. When the fandom kind of exploded, and like my friends who are also part of the same fandoms, like they kind of crowned me queen of the fandom, and I'm like, I don't really, okay, whatever, fine. So that's when they encouraged me, like, you should definitely try to get into this. And it's just a lot of like testing the waters. Like I wasn't sure if I had the time or the energy to do that. Apparently I did, and that's kind of how it played out. Like I think at one point, I mean, there are people who earn way more, but there was a point where I was earning basically like $1,000 or more a month just drawing fan art of Korra. And I'm just like, huh?
Well, that's good. Like, that's like like, that's a living.
Yeah, it's
like,
a living. Exactly.
It's I mean, compare that to getting a desk job, like,
Yeah, for doing art here, it's not the most, like, in terms of payment, not the most fair a lot of the time.
Yeah, so like, no? So it just exploded, and then, Kato, you're able to capitalize that into a Patreon, and then, but like, so you mentioned that you kind of disappeared for like 2 years?
Yeah, like two and a half or almost 3 years, I had a lot of trouble doing art or actually just functioning as a human being because my depression was full blown. Like, I went through like a bunch of toxic encounters, or like, I guess, relationships in that sense, because, the non-monogamy thing, sometimes it's a hit or miss. And there were some things that didn't work out, and it took a toll on me. So I wasn't able to balance my life and my work at all. I didn't balance anything. Like, getting out of bed was already really hard. Eating was hard.
Oh, yeah, because I can't imagine, obviously, you have a different like lifestyle choice. So I can't put myself in that.
Oh, yeah, no.
No, but like, I guess that kind of opens it, but it's like kanang. Did you say non-monogamy?
Yeah, ethical non-monogamy. That's the long term for polyamory.
Oh, okay. Wait, what is? You're gonna have to educate me a little bit.
No problem. I'm very, very open to that.
Okay, what is polyamory?
Polyamory is basically having the capacity to love or be in a relationship, whether it's only physical or more, with more than one person.
Okay. So okay, I can see. So it's hard.
Oh yeah, well, relationships are hard in general, really.
Those are like one of the first few things I told Steph after Steph, my wife, after like our first fight or something, or first few fights, and then she's completely understood that 8 years, 9 years, however long we've been together.
Yeah.
Later.
Like, relationships it takes work. Like, it does take work. But having multiple relationships, it's really, I don't know.
I would think like multiple work. Like,
it depends on the people you're with. This partner selection is part of that. If you are, like, this is part of the problem with what happened 2-3 years ago, was because, we had relationships with people that weren't easy to work with, that were difficult, that had their own issues prior to entering the complexity of being in a polyamorous situation. And because they couldn't manage their own problems, it kind of, leaks into everything else. That's kind of I would say one of the difficult things about being polyamorous is because, if one relationship with one person makes you happy, you amplify that by the number of partners you have, the happiness does compound. But if the problems are also present in one relationship, if there are people that are problematic, the problems also compound. So what was happening was that one of my partners, she had a bunch of problems, and then I have, like, my current girlfriend also had a partner who was also, he wasn't very into the idea, and it kind of complicated everything. I mean, I don't fault them for not being into it. It's not for everybody, and nobody should be forced into it. And it's, like, there's nothing wrong with monogamy. It just isn't for us. So that's kind of how it is. But, when you have people who want different things and each person is trying to pull the way they want to, everything just tears up. So that's kind of what happened to me.
But now you're good.
Yeah, it's pretty okay. I'm all right. I'm doing pretty well.
No, I can imagine because, you're really right. Relationships are hard.
Yeah.
And I feel like people don't realize, when you're a kid, and then, like, when I say kid, like, teenager,
you're young.
or your 20s, whatever. But yeah, when you're young, and then you just think, like, you fall in love, and then
and everything just plays out the way it's supposed to, like in the movies. Yeah.
And then, but you don't realize that, you kind of, you work at it every day. Every day it's something happens today, you work at it, and then you hope that something doesn't happen tomorrow. And if it does, you work at it again.
Yeah. It's basically, for me, the way, she and I, like my girlfriend and I talked about it is like, yes, love is work, or like relationships are work. Love is easy. Falling in love is easy. A relationship takes work. But if it gets to the place where it's more of a war zone than a safe space, it might mean it's not right. That's the thing. Cause there are certain things, like, as people, we never stay the same. Like, I've been with my husband for 12 years. We're not the same people we were when we were 21 or 20 when we met and got married and whatever. So it's like, you have to be able to accept the growth of that person and your own, and also acknowledge that if they grow, or if both of you grow in directions where you're no longer good for each other or compatible for each other, that the best thing for that relationship might be to step away from it, and that way you can still be friends rather than forcing the other into a confined box that's convenient for you. And then you just end up hating each other, and then that relationship literally disappears. There's no relationship after, because the friendship's gone. And
then before it even gets to disappearing, you're going through this period of,
like, resentment and it's toxic.
It sucks.
It's terrible, terrible. So that and it took me a while to get there, because when we jumped into this whole, ethical non-monogamy thing, it was very trial and error. And I think about 2 years ago, I started actually buying the books and listening to podcasts and doing research. Yeah. So I became more informed and more aware of, like, habits that I had that were toxic and working on them and stuff like that. Like, these are things that I had never thought of, or things that I wasn't aware of, or things that I didn't want to admit.
In the beginning, when you first
or
decided.
even just being
in a relationship.
Yeah, relationship in general. Like, I would realize that sometimes I could come off as dismissive, or I would be very antagonistic and defensive about certain things. So, like, learning how to speak in a neutral tone when I want to explain something difficult, and not have myself be affected by a momentary emotional burst, like things like that. Very difficult, but it does serve you in the long run. Like, it really does help. And communication is important in every relationship, but all the more so when you have more partners.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's super important.
I find that sometimes when it's a weird or bad situation, no, like in general, like somebody will send me an email, and then I wanna reply
very harshly.
Yeah, like that's my initial response.
You want to clap back.
Yeah, and then so then I realized that wait, mark it as unread.
Yeah, and move on.
Yeah, just like breathe a little bit, make an hour, 2, 3, 24 hours pass, and then,
then
go
reply.
back into it. You've been thinking about it for a while, or you forgot about it, but
you've cooled down.
And then I feel like that helps a lot in plenty of situations.
Yeah. Like knowing when not to speak and to take the time to make sure that what you say is actually genuinely how you feel without being laced by malice or hurt. And that's not something that's very common. Like a lot of people believe, like they believe, some people have this misconception where they think that if you speak your mind at that moment, it is the truest thing. And that's not necessarily true at all. Like example, if I'm saying, if I feel like my partner or one of my partners or like hypothetical is like busy or not spending time with me, instead of saying something like, why are you so busy? Which is what some people would say, or you don't make time for me anymore. These are very accusatory. What do you really want? The way to say that is to be honest and say, I would like you to spend more time with me, or I miss you. That's the actual thing you want to say. But because you're uncomfortable with admitting that and being vulnerable and direct about it, it's covered in this defensive layer of antagonism, and then it turns into a fight. So being able to advocate and communicate your needs and what you actually want to say in its truest and most neutral form, I think is most important.
Yeah, that's super important. And then it's not something, no one taught me this in school.
Yeah, I wasn't taught this at all. Like, I come from a very headstrong female family. It's just like that's it.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Very, very, that's part of why I had to work on these things, because I'm so used to just being shoot, no questions asked kind of mouth.
Well, I wonder if there's something that, where people can learn from and educate themselves with. Because when you get into a relationship, especially when you're young, you really have no idea what you're doing.
And most people think that what they see in the movies is how it's supposed to be. And when they do the things like buy extravagant gifts or like take them out on a pleasure cruise or something like that, and it doesn't fix the underlying problem.
Band-Aid.
Yeah, it's a band-aid for a situation that you're not really addressing. You're treating the symptoms, but not the actual sickness. And it's just really sad that that's how most people see it. Like, their solutions to those problems.
Monogay, I also realized that I asked you how you got into art, and then somehow we ended.
No, it's okay. It's fine. It's an organic conversation.
I know,
but that also ties into what I do now, like what my art is now versus what it was before. Where I did some work for DC. I did comic coloring. I still do for some independent work, but a lot of what I do on Patreon and what people support me for are intimate, relationships. Example, the Legend of Korra thing. That's still majority of what they want to see, or like Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, because they're actually, that I know of, mainstream Western comics as bisexual, non-monogamous girls. Like they actually, like Harley goes on dates with male characters, and Ivy's like, you go on ahead, you have fun. Like, I know you'll be okay. And she's like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah. Like, I don't get jealous. And it's like seeing that representation did so much for me and other people I know. And even my girlfriend, who doesn't even really read these comics, when I show her that, she'll cry because it's something she didn't think would be visible. And it's fairly mainstream characters. Like Harley is one of the biggest female comic characters now. And Poison Ivy is also very iconic.
I wouldn't have, because since I'm not in that world, so I wouldn't know that from just looking.
Yeah.
I mean,
you see the pictures, you're
I see pictures, but to me, they're just, okay, it's two girls.
Yeah.
But
underlyingly, there's actually layers.
There's a whole story there. There's layers there. That's right.
Yeah. And most people romanticize the Harley Joker thing. And I'm like, no. Cause even in the animated series, because that's like, for me, like, I love the comics, but for me, Batman is always about the animated series from Warner Brothers with like the classic black suit and everything. Yeah, right? Like growing up with a Mark Hamill Joker, which is like my favorite Joker ever. And the relationship Harley and him have is incredibly toxic. And I kind of find it uncomfortable that people romanticize that. Like you'll see people on Tinder going like, looking for the Harley to my Joker. And I'm like, so that means if I catch Batman for you, you're going to beat me up because that's what he did when she offered him as a present to Joker. Like, that's not a, like, swipe left.
Okay.
No, thank you. Like, no.
I've never done Tinder.
It's okay. I've never dated anybody from Tinder. Yeah, it was kind of like something I tried just for like, for fun because my friends were doing it. Yeah, like some people I know don't even actively look for partners on it. They just use it for self-esteem boost. Like, oh, somebody found me cute today or whatever, and that's fine. And for me, I was just like curious to see what people said about themselves. Cause you'd see all these posts on the internet,
like
right? Yeah. And then you see like some are really funny. So I was like, I want to see if anybody here is actually witty.
Yeah, but I have friends who got married through Tinder. Like they met, well, they didn't get married in Tinder. They met somebody through Tinder.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how, well, not
it's
Tinder,
cool.
but like I met my husband online and we bonded through music and gaming. Cause that's how, LDR, that's all we had. We just shared, like, I shared, local bands and like Urban Dub. I got him into that, like Franco. Yeah, like, cause, well, they sing in English. He's American, so he can understand it. And he really liked those things. Like, he got into River Maya and all that. So that was our way of like exchanging the things that mattered to us. Like, music for me is a way to, like the mixtape. It shows kind of who you are and what you like. It's a way of telling a person, this is who I am and these are the things I value. Same with games. So that's kind of how we got together. So I wouldn't bash anybody or like be like, oh, you're weird, you got together on Tinder. Cause I got together with my husband on a site for an anime neither of us really watched. So
what? Sorry?
Like it was like a site for Bleach, the Bleach anime. And we kind of got into it, but we weren't like hardcore fans. But there's a section in the forum for music. And that's where we interacted. And that's how we got together. Yeah.
And then that was like
a long time ago. 2005 or something. Yeah, like really, really old.
I also realized, and then you've also been doing like well, now I don't consider what you're doing freelance. Do you consider it freelance?
Yeah, because because I do take projects from publishing.
So you still do it.
I do still work for like companies that are like smaller companies or individuals that want to print out comics and stuff. Like example, Jeremy Dale, he died in like 2014, I think, or something. And I worked with him. I colored Skyward for him. And then I think it was earlier this year or late last year, his widow contacted me and said like, I want to do a Kickstarter and finish the comic that he wasn't able to, and we'll do the last issue. Would you want to color for it? And I'm like, yeah, like I would totally want to do that. And they did end up publishing it. So I would consider that like even, it's a freelance thing. Even if it did have a layer of personal, like, I want to make Jeremy's dream, like, I want to finish it because we didn't get to. Yeah. But at the same time, it's still legit work. And
yeah.
I
know. In my head, I thought you were doing like purely the Patreon.
No.
Okay.
Like, the Patreon is like a bulk of what I do. Like I'd say it's half and half because like, the other person I work with sometimes is John Amore. Yeah. Like I colored for him too, like the 1 week in the library thing that made him the Eisner nominated John Amore now. And like that was something we worked on together too. And it's great that like two kids from Cebu that knew each other at 14 that were drawing in Ayala and SM work on a comic that ends up published in Image and nominated.
My memory of John will always be when we were in grade school or high school. Grades has to be grade school. When we were in grade school, he had like I don't know what to call it. I mean, I'm gonna say club, but not really. It was like a group, and then they would basically role play every recess or lunch.
Well, he's a dungeon master now.
Something like that. Basically,
it's like a 2 or 3 year ongoing D&D campaign now. Like, yeah.
That's basically what he did in high school. I feel that's what
John.
he did in high school. I know, in grade school.
Yeah, in grade school. Like,
I just remember them, like, I'll just be standing there, and then, like, John's group running past me because they're...
With their pretend world.
Yeah, like slaying a dragon or something.
Yeah. Like, John, for me, John is always has been and always will be a storyteller.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that is his thing.
John is cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Actually, the first time John and I met was funny because like, I remember, I think it was his dad and my dad. They were like, you know, like, oh, I know this person and they have a kid that's also like comics like you. Kind of like that, very dismissive. So like my dad tried to set me up on a play date with John O'More when I was 14 and we met each other and we were kind of just like, oh, hey, sure, whatever. Like, wala. And
you guys ignored each other.
Not really ignored, but we weren't really close because both he and I take a while to warm up to people. We're both like cats. Like, it takes us a while to like you. But once we like you, we really like you.
But also at 14, like,
yeah, you know, like awkward stage,
yeah.
and you're kind of like, oh, I'm trying to be cool. I don't want to be like, I don't want him to think I'm a wuss. But then, like, there's still like this posturing, like being cautious and stuff. But like, he got me into that Sukulmo comic group, which is like a bunch of like local artists that some of them are actually pretty successful in the comic industry now. But like, basically we would meet up at SM Rayala and we would draw comics and stuff like that and do like self-publishing. And then popcorn was a thing, diba, with Warren Tan ba na? Like the comics, that were published, and they'd put them in like video game stores and stuff. And then John O'More did move to popcorn. And he and I just stayed in touch and kept hanging out. And even after he moved to Davao, like, walang, it's always just kind of been a thing that we were unwittingly, like, became comic buddies. Thanks to our dads being like, comics, go
like,
talk.
you have to thank your dads.
Yeah, kind of, a little bit.
No, but, anyway, because I was thinking, I read somewhere, like, you started freelancing in 2007?
Yeah, when I was in, the States. Actually,
okay, so because like now freelancing that's like a job, that's a real job for a lot of people here in Cebu.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? Like murag daghan gyud kaayo.
If not even like freelance, home based. Like some people work for companies, but they still work from home. Like
but the freelance thing is a lot sa gyud. And then 2007 is really
early. Very early.
What was it like? But you were in the US, had.
I was in the US at the time, but I came back in 2008. So like a year. It's not.
So you were still freelancing when you came back. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get an in-house job probably until about 2010. I was just strictly home-based until then, and even then I would still do projects at home. Like that never stopped. Like I would always still take projects from, because you have to supplement your income, because especially at the time 2010, like the creative industry in terms of publishing and in-house work wasn't very in demand. Like there were very few places. It's not like now there's like so many more publishing houses here and stuff like that. But like I still had to supplement with taking freelance jobs. So that never really stopped for me.
But how does it, like back then, what was it like? Because how did you get clients?
Apply. Like I
would really apply.
Yeah,
you
like
went to
I
their
would.
Website and just
Yeah, like I would see posts, example, because at the time DeviantArt was the thing. Like pre-social media, DeviantArt was the it-all and all of art, digital art or online art activity. So they would have a job post like forum, and people and or companies would post like, oh, we have an opening for this, or we need somebody to do this, and I would post my stuff, and like more than half the time I wouldn't get it, and that's
the
fine.
game.
That's the game. That's part of it. Yeah, and then there is there's some things where, like, example, I just kept posting my art and kept putting it out there, which is what people do now in social media, and it's still how to do it. And I got found by Drew Edward Johnson, and he's a penciler, and he does comics and stuff. And he basically asked me, like, hey, like, I really like the way you pick your colors. Do you want to color for me? Like, I just want to do like prints for conventions, but I need a colorist. So like, I'll give you like, I'll pay you a set amount for these prints, and then like maybe some royalties. It depends on the arrangement. But then he got an offer, like I think he applied, or his art agent got him a gig at DC, which was to draw for the new She-Ra reboot. And he was like, yeah, I'll do it, but she has to color. That's actually how I got into DC. I never applied.
Oh yeah?
I got in because somebody insisted that I be his partner in terms of producing the art. And after I did that, DC wanted to keep me because they liked what I did. And they just kept giving me more work after that. So sometimes, like, I kind of like to call it, it's almost like passive application, where like I've gotten to the place where I don't really have to apply for jobs. They just show up, or they'll ask me if I have the time.
Because that's a big hurdle for a lot of freelancers, because once they get, because all of a sudden, here's the problem with freelancing. If you do work, after you do the work, you need to find ways to still get more work.
Yes, exactly.
So you're spending your time doing whatever it is, And then you're also spending your time
looking
looking.
and fishing, basically.
Yeah, basically. So I feel like it's a struggle for a lot of people. And then, but you were able. The nice thing with what you do is you're essentially creating a brand for yourself also.
Yeah, basically.
No?
That's the thing I think that is most advisable for specifically for freelance artists anyway, is to have an identity or something that you're able to offer that is unique, and people will look for you for that particular thing after a while.
Yeah, because you're not just a colorist. You
No.
could do.
Yeah, I do illustrations and comics and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you could essentially do everything. But is it fair to say you're, at least for the freelancing side, you're like known as they get you mostly for the coloring?
No,
I really
it's
don't
half
know.
and half. It's
Okay.
both. Like for comics, it's mostly coloring, but I've done like illustrations for books, like the inside of books, like those fantasy novels. But then when you open it, there's like this black and white thing, and God, I can't remember his name. Brandon Sanderson. Like he had this anthology of like small fantasy stories, and DeviantArt was also where I got this job, where basically one of his the people in his publishing were like, oh, we like your work and we want you to work with this writer for this particular story. They gave me the peg and everything. And then I just churned that out and that was it. So like it really depends. Like I've had some weird offers or like unusual things. Like I expect comics and it'll be like, oh, we want to make this like animatic thing, but we need the assets for it to move. So like, can you make like a layer just for the arm and stuff? So it just kind of goes into animation also. Like it kind of just goes everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought when you said weird.
Oh, no.
offers-
Oh, no. Those are also a thing. Like, some people ask me for porn, and I'm like, no.
Oh, really? Are you serious?
Yeah. Like, well, in my Patreon, I do not safe for work content, but it's still, for me, like, I got an offer for a basically very, very not safe for work site, and they were like, oh, we want you to draw this content, blah, 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 and this is how much, but they wanted it to be for, quote, the male gaze. And I'm like,
What?
what? Like,
What does that mean?
it means usually very, very raunchy and very graphic and very, very like objectifying. And I'm like, that's not just what guys want. I mean, that's really stereotyping. I know a lot of guys that wouldn't gravitate to that or would also be open to content that's more intimate, more emotional. There's more of a mental and like an emotional connection between the characters. It's not just straight on like that, but like there's a build up to it. And which is what part of what I do on Patreon is like, I do not safe for work content, but there's always a level of connection and intimacy that's involved. I want it to be clear that these people are happy and they're in love with each other, and it's not just like,
it's not straight out porn.
yeah, it's not just physically, like bam, that's it. It's a mess, blah. And then like,
It's a mess.
yeah, and I'm just like, there needs to be more positive, like, emotional content tied to that sort of material for me. Cause I actually know a lot of guys that I have shown my work to that have said like, yeah, like we would pay for this content more than like the stuff that we're getting that they say is for the male gaze, which is, it's such a shallow thing to say.
Yeah, well, I having grown up in an all boys school.
It's okay. I have brothers.
I know, yeah, but like I feel like that is pretty typical.
Yeah, it
the,
is.
the male gaze.
It is, but it's not the only thing. And that's something I wanted,
No, I understand.
I wanted
Yeah.
to work towards. It's like, like creating content that isn't just that. Especially because like I do have male friends that are demi-sexual, which is basically you are unable to be sexually attracted to a person or find something arousing if there is no emotional connection involved. Like they can't just, you can't just look at a gorgeous woman or person and be like, yeah, like I'm ready to go. They're like, no, like I have to get to know this person. I have to, like, are they funny? Are they nice? Are they kind? Like, is our chemistry good? Like that has to be a prerequisite before any of the other things can happen. And it's not something guys are comfortable talking about because,
I feel like your male friends are evolved.
No, I wouldn't say it's not necessarily evolved. It's just different. Like my girlfriend's demisexual. She's the same way. But I also have, like, I'm not quite demisexual. I have it, but I can still be a shallow person. Like, I can still just be like, yes, I like it. That's fine. Yeah, I still have those moments. And it's like, it's not necessarily like some people would say that too about polyamory. Like, oh, you guys don't get jealous or you're good at managing your insecurities and feelings. You're more evolved. It's like, no. we're just different. Like, we just have a different way of doing things. If you asked me to be just monogamous, I would have a hard time with that because it's just different. So I wouldn't say it's more evolved.
Bitaw, kana ba? Like, this, like the polyamory here in the Philippines, I'm just gonna assume that there's pushback in a way, like, from society. I mean, being in the Philippines, meaning it's so, like,
it's conservative. It's
yeah,
definitely very, very conservative. But I actually know a bunch of people that are like that. Not a lot, obviously, but like my family has known for a while that I have been ethically non-monogamous, and that my husband is also the same way. And I've brought my girlfriend to like family Sunday lunches and stuff. I think there's an importance in showing just how normal and boring we are. Like, people are like, oh, you should have like a webcam show in your house to show, like, and like, you know what it's like?
People really said that to you?
Yeah, some people are like, we want to see how like different it is. Like, literally, we're doing laundry, we're cleaning the house, we're cooking, we're working, we're talking about what we need to buy at the groceries. It's the same. It's like having housemates, except we're in a relationship with more than one person, but it's really not that crazy.
It's more people to do the laundry, more people to cook food.
Yeah, basically. Or like, if somebody can't cook, then like you do the dishes. Sige, fine. Like, kami tayo bahala, ani. It's a very domestic situation what I have. It's really not that interesting.
No, yeah, I know, I understand. Like,
Yeah.
it's cool that like you can do that in your family, with that, you can all three of you can have, go to like these parties, to the dinners.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it would be nice if, sometimes you'll see this family, and then the daughter or the son is dating somebody that they don't like, and then it's this big
drama
problem,
or chismis. I mean, I'm not gonna say that all of my family understands it. Most of them don't, but they accept it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't pretend to understand it.
And that's fine. Like, for me, it's like, as long as you're not like pushing it in my face how much you don't like it or don't understand it, that's fine. Like, I'm not gonna, there's no problem. That's fine. But like, it's always nice for me when, like, recently I went to see my aunt, and I was alone. I went by myself, and the first thing she asked was, "Where is your girl?" And I'm like, "Oh, she's working. She's busy." And Brian's also working at home. Like, my husband's working at home. And like, she didn't just ask, "Where's your husband?" She actually asked me also where my girlfriend was. And so it kind of just becomes this normal thing, and it's not a big deal, which is what we want really in the end, is for it not to be a big deal.
It's like that small gesture was a huge...
Yeah, that was huge, because it just felt like the most normal thing to ask. And it didn't feel like there was a layer of discomfort versus like before when it was new. They'd be like,
sure.
they're like, who's she? They'd be like, oh, she's Kat's best friend. Like, they'll try to find a way. Yeah, I'll find a way to say it. And with a stutter, it's so clear that they don't know how to say it because they're uncomfortable, or they're not sure if this person they're talking to is ready to hear that. And if they ask me, I'll just say it, and I won't even explain. I'll just be like, oh, she's my girlfriend. And then just carry on. Like, I didn't say anything that just blew their minds.
No, I can get it though from the side of your, like,
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I can be like, I can understand where they're coming from, because I know that I have the same, like, let's say, like, I'll have a friend who's gay.
Yeah.
And then even like little things like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say he or she. Like,
yeah,
even,
like if they identify as male or female.
Yeah, like even like that. So I remember as we were on a drive with a friend of mine, and then I asked him, no? So, I wanted to be educated.
Yeah, to learn. And,
essentially. Yeah, because I don't, like...
It's not your world. Like, you
exactly.
It's not something you have to think about. It's something you want to learn about. Yeah.
Wanna. Well, I'm glad that, I'm glad you're really open about that, and you're willing to talk about it and everything.
I think it's important to have those conversations, and to like not be, I mean, there's this thing on the internet, how like the quote SJW thing, where like basically if you ask
SJW?
Social Justice Warrior.
Oh yeah.
So basically if you ask them a question about those things, they get very defensive and offended about why don't you know about it? If you really wanted to know, you'd research, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, sure, but if you want to make this a normal thing and have people be on your side, antagonizing them and shaming them for being ignorant is not the best way to go about it. So for me, it's always about living and leading by example rather than shoving it in your face and telling you this is how it's supposed to be, you know?
I also really like your strategy of just like how mundane it is.
Because it is. Like, it's not that, like, I don't think we're special or...
Yeah, it's like, which is in a totally different level, but the only thing I can compare it to is like when you get married and then your friends who are not married.
Oh, what's it like being married? How's married life? Oh my God, that question.
Oh, diba?
Oh, kasi mo mga anak. Oh my God. I still get that. I think we don't want kids. Just one. Just one. You just need one. That's okay na. Like, no.
Yeah, like I'm totally, I like it when I have some friends, like they're married, and then I just ask them, so, I think I just asked, do you have any kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, wala pa. No, wala. Daddy, may ganahan ba? Like, we just like it what it is right
being
now.
Together, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's, you know what? Good for you. Because like, I have 2 kids.
Yeah,
They're
you're a parent.
wonderful boys. But it's hard. Like, it's tiring.
Being a parent
it's
is
super
work.
tiring.
That is a lifetime commitment.
So, and it's tiring when you wanted to have them.
Yes.
It's much more tiring
when you actually
if you didn't, if
you didn't want a kid and you have one.
And that's what happened.
Exactly.
I mean, loy kayo. No? Same thing, well, kind of similar to what we're talking about kanina in terms of like, if you wanted to get a corporate, if you were going to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And then,
like, even if I'm good at it, if I'm not happy.
If you're good at it, yeah.
So it's like, like that's something I kind like the one that really wants me to have a kid's my dad, because like, like I have an American husband, so like, guwapo na yung mga anak.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
That's always the stereotype, and I'm just like, we're both blind, we both have allergies. The kid might turn out not so great, like, just because he's halfway. I'm just saying, but that is a possibility. He might be wearing glasses the moment he's born, like, because we both have bad vision. And what I always told my dad was, Dad, if I really wanted to raise a child, I would adopt. Because that means I want to be a parent, and not just I want to have a child that's from me, like my genetic line child. And I don't care about that as much. And I feel like at some point in my life, maybe I will adopt. Maybe later on when I've settled down on the career hunting and stuff, and I kind of want to nurture someone instead. Yeah, that's something I am still open to. But like, I kind of want him to rephrase the way he says that. And he says like, like, don't you want to be a parent? I'm like, yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have to give birth. But for him, back then, older people, but for them, it's so important to have a legacy. And I'm just like, daghan na kay tao sa world. And there's so many children that don't have parents. And like, I'd rather just like, help with that situation than add to the possible problems. So,
no, it's, but that's cool. That's what's cool now about like what's happening now ba. There's not this emphasis on these old, in a way, like old tradition. Not tradition is the wrong word.
Old practices.
Yeah, because the world is a big place, and you can be whatever you want. Like,
it's also,
literally.
It's also different. Like it's you can be anything you want, but at the same time, it's kind of caused problems that you can be whatever you want, because
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, because like back then when things were kind of set, like if you were a farmer, you married into a farmer family, and it was sort of set. You weren't given all these options that you could be, and therefore when you couldn't be those things, you weren't depressed or asking yourself, why am I not like that? Like because those options weren't on the table before. And that's something like my girlfriend and I do talk about. It's like how it's great that you can be anything and everything you want to be, but it doesn't always play out that way. And when you see or for some people, when they see other people succeed in a way they couldn't, then they beat themselves up over for it. It's kind of like it's a good and bad thing.
I always think to myself that there's certain things that keep popping up in my head. And one thing that keeps popping up is that you can be to me, like you can be anything, but you just can't be everything. You kind of
Yes.
need to choose.
Yeah, you can't, like, I would love to be an artist, singer, composer, marine biologist, martial artist, linguist, all of those things, archaeologist, Indiana Jones, but female, like, there's so many things I want it to be, and there's a lot of things I'm good at, but I don't have the time.
Come on
So
now.
you have to taper it down. Like, it's just something that you kind of have to do. And it just, like, all of the other things I wanted to do just become my hobbies now, like music. Like, that's just like stuff I do for fun now. Like, it's not the thing I do for a living, which is actually what my dad wanted to be. His true dream was to be a rock star.
Tama ba?
Okay, Beatles, like the Stones, like that was the thing in the 60s, diba? Like,
Yeah.
rock and roll. Like, that's what he really wanted to be. But he's a neurosurgeon instead. Not too bad.
Too bad. Not shabby at all.
Yeah, he's a pretty renowned neurosurgeon in the Philippines, and he still writes music and plays sometimes and records songs. So he still gets to kind of do both, and that's fine,
I feel like that's what I think most people should do, that in a way.
Like, find something that they can do and would do for a living that they love, and still find time for the things that they love, but no longer have the pressure of a monetary, like, requirement for it.
Yeah, because also that's in a way. I was talking to a friend of mine. He's a musician, and then he has to play every night,
Yeah.
and then it's a job.
Yeah, it's work.
Yeah, it's work. So when he gets to play the paying gigs, which he'll play, but then when he does this gig, na murag, he can kind of stretch like it's a different band. They're probably not as well known.
He can actually play
yeah,
and not perform.
yeah. So that's like a different, as opposed to okay, I do my 9 to 5, whatever it is, and then after that,
Yeah.
then I get to really enjoy this thing.
That's kind of how I am with art. Like, I do still have my freelance gigs, and I do enjoy it, but it's still work. Like, end of the day, it is work. But I also get to draw the things I want for fun.
Yeah,
And,
the Patreon stuff.
Yeah, the Patreon stuff, or even stuff that's not related to Patreon. Like, there are some local projects I'm interested in, and we haven't even talked about money because I'm just interested in the content. And like, I'm like, this is going to be a passion project. If it becomes like, there's a monetary thing later, that'd be great. But I love that there are projects that I want to get into, and money is not something I have to think about, because I do have a fallback. I do have something that can support me through that, and this just becomes something I do because I love it, like purely out of love.
Well, I also think, the nice thing with you is that you're at this spot where there's not many people can do that thing that they enjoy and still earn from it. You get what I'm saying? Like even you, like, you're doing the freelance work, which is still work. We still enjoy it. But the stuff that you would be normally doing for free,
Yeah.
you still have a set of people who are willing to support you.
Yeah, to see it. And
to see it, yeah.
That's something. It's like how, like, back in the day, like the Renaissance era and all that, you had the patrons of the arts. That's basically what this is in the modern day. Like, back then, people didn't always. I mean, artists did do commissions. They did do orders, like, from the church or from, like, people of power or banks or whatever. But people were also just willing to support them because they believed in what they were envisioning on their own. Like, they just liked the work that they did, and people were willing to bank on that and support them. And that's kind of what's happening now. Even though I do still take surveys, like on my Patreon, I'll ask, like, okay, like, I don't know what I'm doing next month. Like, I really don't know. I don't have plans. If you guys want to suggest things, I am very open to them. Just like send me a message, or I'll make a poll if I have ideas, but I'm not sure which one to go with. So I'm still listening to feedback, but they don't direct me on how to portray that idea. I just kind of ask them for input in terms of where I can get started. And then after that, I just do whatever I want, and they generally are very approving of it.
Do you have a schedule for your Patreon content?
I try to do, at least 8 pieces a month, which is actually not that much. Some people do like 20.
Oh.
Cause for them, Patreon is their monetary thing. That is their job. Like, they don't do anything else, or for most part, they don't do anything else. But I try to do at least 8 pieces a month. But that's like fully colored and everything, Judd. Like, it's not just like a sketch. And,
I like you got mga high res that they can print out.
that they can print out, or like have as a wallpaper. Or, like that tends to be what I try to do. As long as I meet that minimum, I'm fine. But sometimes I will go over. Like, it depends on how I feel that day, or like if I feel like I just have this thing I'm very passionate about, like a new show or something, and I go into that, and that's kind of how it goes.
That's cool, nga Murag, that you aren't, because as an artist, I feel sometimes artists make bad choices because,
Oh, I made a lot.
well, we've all made a lot, but
It's
like,
part of learning.
no, but no, what I mean is like, because you need the cash, because there's no like ready income
Yeah.
coming, so you're forced to get whatever you can get.
Yeah. But that's how you have to start a lot of the time.
I guess, no?
Yeah, I
that's
did
true.
have to do that. There were times where I did comics for free because, you know, at the time, these people didn't have anything to pay me, but we also wanted to pitch an idea. And a lot of the time when you do a pitch, there's no money until it's picked up. And it's funny because there's this guy I did a free sort of like few comic pages with. It didn't end up going anywhere. But later on, this guy became, I don't know if like you're probably not familiar, but I think people who read comics will know Rat Queens.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
I'll search him. Everybody
Yeah.
that you said, I'll try to
he's,
put in the
he's
show
the
notes.
writer for Rat Queens, and we started out just like doing free pages together and trying to make a pitch, and it didn't work out for me, but I'm glad it worked out for him. And there's another girl who I worked with for an anthology, and there wasn't a lot of money involved in that either. And now she's writing, I think she's one of the first or one of the few writers for Spider-Man.
No ba?
Yeah, she wrote the comic for Star Wars Rogue One. Like, she's doing super duper duper well in the comic industry now. And it's like, it's happy seeing that. Like, I worked with her on her first comic ever. I was one of the artists, and now she's like signing comics, meeting the cast of Firefly, and all these things. It's just like, I'm so happy for her. And it's really great.
Yeah. Well, I think we're an hour or something. Is there anything? Is there anything you wanna? Did you miss anything? Are you good?
No, I think I'm alright.
Where can people find you?
On social media, I am, my username is Denim Catfish. That is one word. And that's everything. Like my Twitter, my Instagram, my Tumblr, my Twitch. That's all there.
I'll make sure to link everything in the show notes.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this talk. Like, I didn't, I have notes and everything, but
Yeah.
it was cool where it,
Yeah, it just flows. Like, I kind of like that. It feels a lot more organic and casual.
sige. Good?
Good.
All right.
Then
then,
something
like,
comes up.
yeah,
and
like
shit,
one
I have
last
an
story.
idea. That's fine. It's okay.
See, the last time you talked about,
Polyamory, or like my situation in detail, or at least not maybe detail, but like to a bunch of people that had no idea what was going on, was one of our classmates from high school who is currently in New Zealand visited, and she was like, I want to have like a get together. So like we planned a dinner like with my high school classmates and stuff, and I had brought my girlfriend with me because she was available, my husband wasn't. And she was just there, but she had to leave early. She had another engagement, so we were like, okay. And then nobody said anything. They're all just fine. As soon as she left, everyone looked at me and they're like, so, Kat, the thing you have at home, how does that work? And I'm just like, oh, so that's what they're waiting for. So it's like, okay, explaining, like, okay, like, do you guys all sleep in the same bed? No, init siya. And also, some of them snore. I'm a very light sleeper. That doesn't work for me. Like, basically, like, how the domestic thing fits. And it's so, I think I kind of, even though it seems mundane to me, or like just normal, because it is my normal, even just talking about basic little things, like having to coordinate my dates. Like, I'll go on it, like, be like, okay, like, I have to, like, my husband wants to go, like, do errands, but at the same time, we'll have, like, lunch at a Japanese restaurant or whatever, and then my girlfriend will be like, oh my god, I'm gonna do your makeup. Like, immediately support rule. Like, I was just gonna wear jeans and flip-flops, and she's like, no. You have to get dressed up. Like, it's a date. You're going on a date with your husband. So, like, she'll do my eyeliner and...
wait, I have a question in that vein.
Okay, sure.
So, in my head, the three of you are in a relationship.
No,
we're
we're not.
Okay.
My husband and I are together, and he has a girlfriend. I am not dating that girlfriend. We're friends. And I have a girlfriend, and she is not dating my husband. So it's actually not like a square. It's more like an N or a Z because the lines only connect with certain people.
Okay.
So yeah, that actually makes it a little bit more like because I have had a triad configuration before where it's like all three of us are together.
Okay.
Yeah, and you would think like people assume, oh, that's easier because like you don't get jealous or you don't get into. It's like that's not true because it's not that polyamorous people are immune to jealousy. We just manage it better. We don't go like, oh, I'm jealous and it's the worst thing in the world and it's this feeling that like some people think that jealousy is a mark of love and it's not. It's a mark of insecurity. Yeah, it's an inside job thing. Like there's something in you that you either need to work on or you need reinforcement externally. And that's not a marker of like, oh, I love you because I get jealous. That's not it really. And it's more of like, with us, when we feel jealousy, we ask ourselves, why do I feel jealous? What is the thing that I feel I am not getting or the thing, and if that thing is something I can actually do for myself, or if dili jud, then it's something that I have to ask my partner for in a neutral tone and not demand or accuse him or her of not delivering. Like you're not saying, Bana, this is the thing I signed up for, why aren't you doing it? We don't do that. It's not healthy to do that. We have to be like very clear and communicate and check on each other is very important. Like the transparency has to be there at all times.
Okay. So yeah, I think we can like really end there.
Hope you enjoyed that conversation. I told you, I learned a ton in this conversation. It's not often. This might be the first 032 Conversations episode where we explicitly talk about relationships and how hard it is. And honestly, this is the first conversation I've had ever about polyamory. So, Kat, if you're listening, thank you so much. It was a really good experience. It would be great to have you on again. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to support what we do, there are 3 ways to support the podcast. First way is patreon.com/032. You can become a patron. Head on over there and see all the fun rewards that we give our patrons. Second way is share the episode on social media. That always helps. The more listeners we get, the more chances of us doing this podcast longer. Third way is write a review on iTunes. That tells people that you enjoy it and tells, more importantly, iTunes too, so they can, I don't know, there's some sort of algorithm thing there, whatever. Oh, the other way to support is, actually, you can also buy 032 clothing. Yeah, head on over to 032.com, look for the shop, see what's up there, or you can head on over to our stockist. There's a list there too. Yeah, 032 clothing. Tag us on Instagram. The music in this podcast is Piano March by Audionautics. Thanks again, Scott Pacaldo, for sponsoring the podcast. I'll see you next Tuesday. Out.